Welcome back, everyone. So I wanted to do a video on this blog poster, AwesomePolishkid, and I will leave the link to his blog in the description below. And I really wanted to support his blog page because he gets down the ideology, the principle of social justice warriors. Actually, let me just read this top part for you. If you are SJW, regressive leftist, and or religious fundamentalist, moralist, regressive right-winger, then don't dare report and consider my blogs as hate speech or offensive for religious beliefs. The purpose of my blogs is for education, exploration, and awareness of issues. And he does an amazing job at that. This truly does, when you read it, it feels like you are reading something educational. It is categorical. He's done it so well. It does feel like you are, you are reading basically like a catalog of every anti-SJW neo-skeptic remark to social justice and what I call the alt-right, or the regressive right, and religious extremism. And I really liked this particular one. He has more on his blog. I would really recommend clicking the link, and if you like what you see, follow it, because he does a phenomenal job at this. I will rationally explain why there is a problem with SJWs, regressive leftists. Anyone can be SJWs, not just some liberals. An SJW can be radical feminist, Black Lives Matter activists, and other people such as members of Antifa, far-left, anti-fascist organization. The real problem is that regressive leftists are responsible for. It's all categorized. This is amazing. 1. Falsely accusing someone of hateful discrimination, i.e. racism, transphobia, for reasons such as, for example, not wanting to date someone, or not wanting to date with somebody, and not wanting to sleep with someone because she is not attracted to someone in their preference, i.e. sexual orientation and attraction to either trans or cis people, etc. The logical reason why it is not hateful not to date with somebody they are not attracted to is that dating, sleeping with somebody, and relationships, for example, are just personal. However, what can be logically considered as hateful is refusing to work with somebody in employment in the basis of who they are, i.e. race, gender, identity, sex. Because employment isn't really, but mostly, personal. 2. Attempting to or actually enforcing a pronoun policy which punishes and or prosecutes anyone for misgendering someone, especially if she has no knowledge about socially constructed and unrealistic genders, i.e. pronouns such as zer. And there's like there's over 300 pronouns that are not he or she. Over 300. Most legal aspects that do recognize that, they recognize, I think the largest amount I saw was 70. That's a lot of pronouns. That's a lot of variable genders that do not fall into the he or she category. This has happened in some areas of the U.S. as SJWs are more popular there than in Europe. It's glad to hear that that's not very popular in Europe. Canada got hit with it the most, the biggest. They actually had a bill passed in lieu of the non-binary movement with the bill C-16. The only pronouns which are logical are he and she, because there are true genders. They are true genders. But others, such as zer, is not an actual gender at all. It is not. You cannot Go out there and show me the genitals of somebody that goes by "zer" as a pronoun as being any different than male or female genitals. This does not exist in the natural world. It doesn't. It's, in my opinion, the concept behind these non-binary genders amounts up to religious fundamentalism to me. They believe, they have no proof. That's the very definition of what a belief is acknowledgement of something without indisputable evidence of such. That's what a belief is. And you have the right to believe whatever you want. You can believe that you are a gender other than male or female, but you have no evidence of that. It is just simply how you feel. It is what you believe. It's something that exists within your mind and your mind alone. It is not something that you can prove nor disprove with empirical fact or data. It's a religion to me. Falsely claiming that genders are social constructs and make up their unrealistic genders, i.e. helicopter gender, or in other words, I sexually identify as a helicopter. As the statement from SJWs is incorrect, the genders are only biological constructs, and the fact that they can be either a female or a male. So it concludes that they cannot sexually identify as a helicopter, for example. 4. Hatefully discriminating someone for the majority, i.e. white ethnicity, cisgender identity, and sexual orientation, by falsely claiming that white, cisgender, and heterosexual people are racist, homophobic, and transphobic, etc. The good example is the Black Lives Matter group, a group of people that are meant for fighting for black people's rights and fighting against racism. However, the SJW within the anti-racist group has been attacking people because they come from a majority, especially white police officers, that are not actually racist. This concludes the fact that SJWs view minorities as oppressed minorities, even if there are laws against discrimination within the Constitution of a country. And see, like, I couldn't have put that better myself. That's exactly what they've done. They have tried to go against a group of people because they are a majority, and it's not like that was the intended purpose. It's not like the intention was to create a minority class and a majority class. This is something you have almost no control over. I don't think any reasonable, rational person really cares if they're a minority, majority, or neither. I don't think that matters to a rational person. And ultimately, it's this group, Black Lives Matter, the design of it is, yes, okay, it's for fighting for black people's rights and fighting against racism. That's a good cause. But the group has predominantly attacked white people and just called them racist on the bare merits that they are white. And that's not activism. Well, it is, but it's not fighting against racism, and it's not fighting for rights. It's doing the exact opposite of that. So he really pings the nail on the head with this stuff. It's remarkable. 5. Hatefully discriminating someone from the opposite sex, mainly on men, males. SJWs falsely claim that all males are sexist and overprivileged misogynists. This is mainly common in the radical feminist part of social justice. I like how he consistently uses that word falsely, because that's the message that's ultimately been trying to be put across to these people, is you are falsely accusing people of something they have not done. And it starts to make you feel a little bit insane, and you end up talking with other people like, am I crazy? Like, I agree with such and such and such, but I disagree with these extremists in social justice because they're saying all these other things, and they're conflating things to unreasonable expectations. So, I mean, he just pings the nail on the head with it. It's just, this is a breath of fresh air, really. And I'd like to point out that these interesting little symbols that he's got, representation of my moral political views, anti-social justice, regressive left-wing ideology, and anti-religious fundamentalism, irrational moralism, regressive right-wing ideology. Very, very rational, logical-minded person. It's absolutely wonderful blog that he's got going on here. Supporting illegal immigration, especially allowing refugees illegally entering the area, i.e. European Union, as they may seem not to care about economic and social ramifications of illegal immigration. I have mentioned the ramifications in the blog about my liberal and conservative views. So therefore, they may care more and be more passionate about illegal immigrants. And you should go and subscribe to him, and you can read about that, because I have a feeling he is literally documenting what is going on as far as social political issues of our time goes. I think he's doing an absolutely wonderful job. Making or attempting to make political correctness stricter than it should be. In other words, making offensive slangs more punishable and seen as a serious offense. While I am against using offensive slang in the purpose of attacking and discriminating in any individual, I am also against the tightening of political correctness because it may socially ruin comedy, especially dark and or adult comedy. In other words, entertainment. As it ruins comedy, it can also affect the business of entertainment. Harassing others due to someone's disagreement with their views, even rational disagreement, or that someone is from the majority. Falsely accusing someone of racism due to criticism of Islam and or opposition to illegal immigration. Actually, in fact, criticizing Islam itself or any other religion and or illegal immigration itself is not racism at all. And that's true. I don't know how many times we've tried to drive that point home. Islam is a religion. It's not a race. I could sit here and I could criticize Christianity all day long. And I would have theists, and theist is a general broad spectrum. Theism is anybody that believes in any kind of religious doctrine. That could even include paganism or Wiccan. And I could sit here and I could criticize them all day. And I could get criticisms back or counter-arguments back, but nobody is going to call me some kind of ism or some kind of phobe for doing it. But the moment I could even legitimately pull up Sharia law in this video and read out loud what Sharia law is and all the negative things that are in it and be called an Islamophobe and do nothing more than state fact. And the fact that I could do that and be called some kind of ism or some kind of phobe by just reading the fact of what Sharia law is, be called an Islamophobe, is ridiculous. And not even interject my own personal opinion on how I feel about Sharia law. Just read it out loud and get called Islamophobic for stating nothing more than what is fact. This means, in our culture, at this point, when I cannot criticize a religious fundamental group, an extremist group, a religious ideology, a dogmatic principle, we are literally stripping away the ability of rational thinking, of critical thinking, the ability to think for yourself, which I think religion ultimately is designed to do. I don't think in religion there is much room for rational thought. That, I guess, would put me in the category of being an anti-theist. So, moving on. Falsely accusing someone of sexual harassment just for irrational reasons, i.e., usually a male, someone saying hello to a radical feminist. And you know, the hashtag #MeToo is a prime example of this happening. You know, you have somebody who winked at somebody in a bar 30 years ago. And I know this is a comment that Mr. Andy Fletcher made on one of my videos, and I agree with it. And this is the point, is that if you conflate unwarranted flirtation to sexual harassment, and then in return sexual harassment is conflated to the same level as rape, I'm sorry I'm fumbling. I'm sorry I'm stuttering. But I don't feel I need to explain how ridiculous that is. I feel that that is such a no-brainer that I wouldn't even have to be sitting here even trying to explain how this is a rational argument. Because it is. Just go in and watch Bill Maher again, because he drives the point home pretty clear, and it's why I stutter, because it's like I don't even know what to say to that. I don't even know how you can come to the conclusion that unwarranted flirtation is the same thing as rape and sexual harassment. I don't know how you can reach that conclusion. I really honestly don't understand that. That is beyond logic. That's beyond nature. It's just so ludicrous. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with society when we get to a point where unwarranted flirtation is conflated to the same thing as sexual harassment, and let alone sexual harassment is conflated to the same thing as rape? That's out of control. That's insane. It's like everybody just stop talking to each other for the safety of everyone else. For your own safety, don't talk to anyone. How ridiculous do you have to be? Falsely accusing someone of racism due to criticism of Oh, I read that one already. Did I? I'm confused. What happened? Oh, this is the one I was on. Okay, sorry. This is a rational argument, and I find that crazy that I have to defend that as a rational argument. I feel rationality is declining. Seriously. Okay. Harassing and discriminating other women is often done by radical feminists. In some feminist marches, SJWs, especially radical feminists, have banned transgenders and infertile women on the basis that they do not have the same function as biological and cisgender women. That is hateful, discrimination, and it should not be allowed. And absolutely agree. And it's great that he can call them on their own bullshit. That they champion for anti-discrimination, racism, whatever. And they use discrimination to do so. And this is a true point. These are all the points I have pointed out. However, there is one serious and terrifying thing which regressive leftists very less likely or rarely do. Just be aware, it's the only very small majority of regressive leftists, SJWs, that do this. And what these very minor regressive leftists do is advocating and promoting pedophilia. And that is a subject matter I have covered on my channel multiple times. And I have used what I understand from psychology and criminal psychology to debunk it. And one of the things that I really do not like these pedophiles doing is trying to compare themselves to homosexuals. There's a big difference in the way that the psychological world looks at homosexuals versus pedophiles. Very big difference between the two. This is actually real, and that is fully unacceptable, revolting, and disgusting. I would say that we, as a society, and I do agree that you cannot, that right and wrong are subjective, but we as multiple societies across the board, so basically as a world, the human world, we have subjectively agreed by a huge percentage that because of the damage, the psychological damage, and the physical damage that is done to children, to prepubescent children under these guides, is wrong. That this is something we subjectively agree to almost unanimously across the board. This shouldn't even be debated at all, as it is already debunked and researched, and I love how he points this out, by psychologists, criminologists, and psychiatrists. Absolutely. What they promote is a potential harm to society, especially to young children and vulnerable adults. And he goes on and he talks about some of the ones that I've even covered. And I've covered and I've talked about Heart Progress, NAMBLA. I've never heard of anti-pedopobe Acton. That sounds somewhat German. But I've not heard of that. But I do know about NAMBLA and Heart Progress. And they're disgusting movements, and I think they can do this as much as they want. They're never going to get the support that they want or need to actually substantiate their claims. I don't think it will ever happen. There's just too much evidence, even in the medical field. Even in the medical field, there is evidence against this. I mean, seriously. There is long-term bodily harm that comes from sexual misconduct with a child. Bodily harm, okay? It's just bad no matter how you slice it. The reasons why I mentioned one repugnant thing from the very minor regressive left is that I want to spread awareness against pedophiles and other mentally ill but sexual deviants. Religious fundamentalists, moralists, regressive right-wingers. I will rationally explain why there is a problem with religious fundamentalists, moralists, regressive right-wingers, and the real problem is that regressive right-wingers are responsible for 1. Attempting to or actually restricting access to abortions by changing laws and reducing abortion clinics, etc. Attempting or actually restricting access to contraception by making emergency contraception available with a medical prescription, increasing tax and or prices on contraception, and reducing government spending on birth control, etc. 3. Attempting to or actually, it has happened in El Salvador, criminalizing miscarriages, especially providing strict prison terms and even less or no proper medical care in prison. 4. Allowing doctors to refuse abortions on the basis of the doctor's moral belief. 5. Spreading hoax, lies, and misconception about abortions and contraception. This is an issue. I have a big issue with the right doing this. Right there. I have a big issue with that. 6. Not providing or providing less proper sex education. This is another one I have a big issue with. The sex education department was attacked a while ago, actually kind of quite a while ago. The person that was in charge of the legislation here in the United States for sex education was advocating to teach not about abstinence, but to teach about, how masturbation is healthy, and basically with the mindset of teenagers are going to do it, they're going to experiment with their bodies, they're going to try to engage with each other sexually. This is a natural, instinctual thing. This is something that people do. Not really a whole lot you can do about it. And, the really conservative right-wing people will promote abstinence, which is an unrealistic world to try and live in, and it ends up with consequences of unwanted pregnancies and unterminable pregnancies at that, because they don't agree with abortion either. I think it leads to more deviancy than it actually prevents, and we can look at statistics to even show that. So 6, not providing or providing less proper, I already covered that, sorry. 7, censoring and or criminalizing harmless content, i.e. rational information content criticizing religion and adult consensual pornography. Absolutely. If you have a problem with pornography, don't watch pornography. But the people who engage in pornography know that they're engaging in pornography. In fact, I've known several people who have made pornography because they enjoy making pornography. They don't even get paid for it. They literally just enjoy making pornography and engaging in kind of a voyeurism type aspect. And it doesn't hurt anybody. It should not be made into a crime. If you don't like it, don't participate in it. It's something very, very simple as that. Attempting to or actually making blasphemy a serious crime. Thankfully, we do not have that in the United States. Attempting to or actually banning and or limiting shopping at certain times. No shopping on Sundays for religious reasons. Rationally, it should be the supermarkets and or other services' choice to organize opening times, not the government. And I feel that way on smoking, too. Attempting to or actually banning same-sex marriage and other unions. That has happened in the United States. Thanks, Mike Pence. Attempting to or actually banning LGBT couples from adopting children. And there have been multiple studies that show that children who grow up in same-sex parents do not face any more difficulties in life than a child being brought up by two bisexed parents, I guess you could say. Attempting to or actually... Oh, okay, I read that one. Number 12, restricting LGBT rights in general, i.e. blood donation and discrimination policies. Yeah. I don't think there is a rational argument for restricting LGBT rights. I cannot think of a rational reason to... I think the fear and distaste, disgust with homosexuality is irrational in general. I cannot think of a rational reason to do this, to restrict LGBT rights. I can't think of a reason to tell somebody that they don't have the right to do anything because they're a homosexual has any rational basis behind it whatsoever, you can't explain that to me rationally. It is legitimately a form of bias. It is you projecting your own bias to the rest of the world. 13, making unnecessary business, i.e. rejecting net neutrality and making internet mandatory to pay, especially every single website a user visits outside the paid internet package. So far, this hasn't happened yet now that we've lost our net neutrality, although there has been lawsuits towards Apple and AT&T, because as soon as net neutrality went away, they went, ha ha ha. They tried to do something, a lawsuit was engaged upon them. Google, believe it or not, is advocating for net neutrality. What a lot of people seem to not understand about net neutrality being in place is it opened up a marketplace of free enterprise, capitalism, on the internet. And by taking it away, by taking net neutrality away, you will take that free marketplace away, which is a shame. 14, supporting gender roles. In other words, gender ideology. And that's true too. Honestly, whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, whether you're female, whether you're male, all of us are capable of both male and female attributes, which also, if you pay attention to that, if you understand what that means, it also debunks the whole non-binary thing. They exist on a spectrum between male and female. Technically, everyone does. To some degree. Even the most machoist, heterosexual male you can find has some feminine attribute to them. Alright? There are gender roles that happen in nature, but that's not to say that somebody can't overcome that, because we've seen it. 15, supporting social double standards. For example, prohibiting and making it a taboo for women from walking topless and walking freely with unshaven armpits. This is something I have made points about in my youth. And I'm glad to see him bring this up, because I thought that this was something that was completely forgotten about. But legitimate feminists, the real feminists that were advocating for equality, egalitarianism, a while back, they were advocating for the right to walk around topless. And the reason for that being is that breasts themselves are not really a reproductive organ. They are in the sense that they are there to nurture a child. They're there to feed a child. However, they are not a reproductive organ in the sense of like a vagina or a penis. They're not that kind of organ. They are sexualized by our society, and this is where we're told that women have to cover them up, and maybe there's a point of arousal because we put a lot of sexualization around breasts. When quite in fact, there's nothing sexual you can really do with breasts other than, I guess, rub your penis on them. But that's essentially the same thing as dry humping, and you can do that anywhere on a person's body. It's going to accomplish the same effect. You're essentially dry humping. There's nothing really overtly sexual about breasts. The only thing I can think of other than that is just fertility levels, the ability to rear children, that kind of thing, which, you can look at a woman's hip ratio and get the same kind of established idea, or even facial features. But we're not going to, say that everything on our bodies is sexual, because our primitive minds can deduce something about it that suggests some kind of fertility or child rearing or good genetics or whatever. So no, that's not acceptable. We're not going to. I totally agree with him on this, that breasts should not be considered as private parts. And I think women should have the right to be able to be topless. And I do think that women have the right not to shave themselves. But at the same time, women have to be aware that there may be many, many males that are not attracted to a woman, or that do not find it attractive or physically appealing when a woman does not shave her body. And this is due to a course of, basically it has a lot to do with the psychological evolution, is that we've been doing it for so long, it's something that we've become accustomed to. But I think that if women stopped doing it and it became the norm, it's something that we would stop paying attention to. Kind of like men growing their hair long. That used to be like a social taboo. And as men start doing it more and more, it's not even a thing anymore. Okay, unshaven armpits. While there is no prohibition and taboo for men to do the same thing. I absolutely agree. Of course, there are double standards because certain body parts are sexualized, but they are not private body parts, such as breasts. And the other reason, such as indecency, when it comes to women walking freely with unshaven armpits. However, despite if breasts are sexualized or not, and the fact that unshaven female armpits are not considered a taboo or not, there should be no double standards for these because A, breasts are artificially indecent. Lactation, it's just like artificially picking nose. But they are not naturally indecent because they do not have natural lubrication, unlike private parts. I like how he put that too. He said natural lubrication. So we've established the definition there that an anal cavity can be considered indecent because it does have natural lubrication inside of it. It's a great way, great rationalization there. And B, there is nothing wrong with unshaven armpits regardless of sex or gender. Absolutely agree. And like I said, it's something that would take time. Like if females stopped shaving their bodies, there'd be a lot of males that would probably say, I'm not attracted to that. I don't find that sexy. I find that physically unappealing. However, over time, it would become the norm, and it would be, you would look at the physique of the female body, which the female body is different than the male body. They have a different body structure to them. Males have more prominent eyebrows. We have more square jaw lines, more rigid body features. The bone structure of the male is intended for an extra layer of muscle, whereas the female skeletal structure is intended for an extra layer of fat. The reason for this, for the female bone structure, has to do, again, with evolution. This is how we evolved. Females are the ones that give birth to children. If they did not have this extra layer of fat tissue, then they would develop osteoporosis a lot faster. In fact, it's even been medically proven. Women who have more children have a higher likelihood of osteoporosis. Women in general have a higher likelihood of osteoporosis. The reason why is because they do give birth to children. One of the things that people do not like to consider when it comes to a zygote is that they do in fact act like a parasite feeding off of a host. They are feeding literally off of the nutrients that are meant to be nutrients for the female's body. And the male bone structure, again, is evolutionary, is that the males were the ones that did most of the hunting and the gathering. And what you'll see, too, in males is males are statistically higher to be colorblind. Well, we don't really need to pay attention to colors. We weren't gathering the nuts and berries, or something like colors are very, very significant to women. If you go back thousands of years ago to, beginnings of mankind, that's what you would see, is that there was basically, if you look at an economy as of resources, like the economy is basically allocated to resources back then. So women were actually pulling in the mother load of the resources by gathering plants and vegetables to eat. So the males would probably spend days and days on end hunting for the meat aspect, which is probably allocated to something more of a treat. And it was very important for women to be able to distinguish color, because that could be the difference between something that is poisonous and unedible to something that is not poisonous and edible and tasty. So men didn't need to see color, so guess what? Men have a higher probability of being colorblind. But we developed a bone structure that is designed for bigger muscle mass, because we had to run, we had to chase, we had to fight, we had to catch prey. And so you're talking about evolution at that point, and it's a good thing that we evolved that way, because if we did not evolve that way and we evolved in any other kind of way, we may not be around. So this is a great blog here, and he's got more. He's got more. Tons more. And I really hope that, and I do believe there is more to come, even more. And it's like he is archiving these things of what's going on in our social political climate today. Oh, and here's the pros of LGBTI, the atheism, equal rights. Oh, he has it here. Pro-rationality, pro-secularism, anti-clericalism, stem cell research, and libertarianism. So I just read this one because I really liked how he put this in such a rational way, categorically, documented it well, and yeah, I do want to promote this. I think you should go and look into this blog and see what's to come, because this I think he's just at like 3 posts under this so far. And so I didn't even read the introduction to you, and I would say go and read the introduction, because it reads a lot like this. So it's very well conducted, well written, and I think it's worth the time if you like reading into these things and you need a breath of fresh air, and be able to see that there's still young people out there that have a sense of rationality left within them. I totally recommend doing it. And he's recommend follow. There's a follow link, I think. You go here, and see, yeah, here's more of it. I already followed him, so maybe the button's not showing up, but I would recommend doing it if... Oh, here, somewhere around here, underneath his profile, there's a follow. He also wanted me to give a shout out to a Polish atheist, and I'm not sure how to say his name. I've seen it only in written format. I've not heard it pronounced, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I'm sure it's relatively simple, but I don't know. So I will leave the link to this blog, to AwesomePolishkid's blog, in the description below, and I will leave a link to the Polish atheist in the description below. And I would say support the Polish atheist as well. And think over in the European countries, they're getting really strict on what constitutes as free speech. Basically, in many countries over in the UK, they've lost their freedom of speech. And they have to try and come up with some interesting ways to try and vocalize their concerns to the rest of the world without, being imprisoned. You can't just disagree with somebody. You got to jail them. And that's something I fundamentally just disagree with. I can't imagine, just because you disagree with them, like you like with an idea, like I disagree with Christians, does that mean we need to lock all Christians up? No, absolutely not. Does it mean I'm going to question and debate theology? Oh yeah. So anyway, like, share, subscribe, comment. Check out the links that I'll leave in the description below. And with that, I'm out.